Welcome to the Insightful Astrology Podcast, where life is written in the stars, but you get to edit the script. Making astrology come alive, here's your host, Maria DeSimone.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Insightful Astrology Podcast. It is Maria DeSimone, your host, and it has been 11 months since my last podcast. I just looked it up. And so I am insanely happy to be reconnecting with all of you and so grateful that you wanted me back. So thank you. Thank you. I'm back here on Contact Talk Radio, and it's going to be a show this time twice a month because in case you haven't noticed, I've had some commitment issues with this podcast, not because I don't love doing it. I absolutely do. It's just life has taken us in so many different directions. It's been difficult to commit to a weekly podcast for me and my life and my schedule, but I am going to commit to twice a month, and I'm going to have the same awesome guests, the same amazing content, astrological, metaphysical, and of course, for this first relaunch of the podcast, who else would I have on the show but the podcast favorite guest of all time, psychic medium cousin Joe Perreta. And we are calling this the Pluto Show or the Pluto Shit Show, depending on how the conversation goes. But either way, Joe, hi, honey. Welcome to the podcast again.
Hi. Thank you for having me back. I'm so excited. I'm like, I know we're related, but I'm still like a fan secretly of you, of course, but the podcast too. I'm so happy you finally brought it back.
Okay, well, I am so happy that you're back with me because, I love you. And so much has happened over the past year in your life, personally and professionally. Yes. So tell us quickly, because you are doing some radio now yourself, aren't you, young man?
I am. I don't want to say inherited because our friend Doreen is still alive, thank God. But she stepped down from doing this radio show with Forever Family Foundation. For anyone who follows or knows about it. You could check them out at foreverfamilyfoundation.org. They were just featured in that Surviving Death Netflix documentary. They were in the 4th episode. But anyway, They do a weekly radio show, and every third Thursday of the month, the radio show is a medium host, which is now yours truly. Mm-hmm. And I have another Forever Family certified medium on the show. And we just kind of like chat a little bit like we do, but only, for a short time, like 10 minutes maybe. And then we do, the other medium does readings, and I'll chime in if, I need to, or, whatever. So it's a chance to get basically a quick mini reading. But yeah, so I'm the host of that. So that's exciting. I never thought I'd be a radio host, but I am.
Well, it fits you. I'm glad you're doing it. I think it's wonderful. And so for those of you who might be tuning in for the first time or hearing Joe for the first time, he is a world-renowned psychic medium, amazingly talented, but also a major astrology enthusiast and astrologer in his spare time. So, Joe, where can people find you for readings and everything else that you do?
So my main way to contact me would be on my website, which is just joeperreta.com. That's Joe, Perreta.com. If you Google me, you'll find it. But I'm on Instagram, same handle, Joe Perreta on Instagram. I have a Facebook, which is the same name. And I actually have a Patreon too, where I do weekly updates. I do, for the different tiers, I do like extra, like 2 monthly little tarot card, like pick a card readings. And then I have a tier for actually teaching like tarot and some astrology stuff and just my own techniques that I use to tune in with spirit. And, I'm trying to branch out during this very virtual time that we're in and be more available online because I'm not a technology person.
Well, and neither am I. So, I mean, it's a miracle.
Yeah, but you're so good about it always. You've always been so good about it online. I'm terrible. I'm like a 90-year-old.
No, I'm a 90-year-old too, but I attract really amazing technological help to me, like my amazing webmaster Pam, like my amazing producer here, Cameron. I attract the right people because it really isn't me. I suck at technology.
Well,
but anyway,
I do know that about you, but you are very good online, I must say. So I'm trying to follow in your footsteps.
Oh, you don't need to follow me, honey bunch. You got your own footsteps. But listen, so today's show, to bring back, the inauguration, whatever you want to call it, of the podcast.
The rebirth.
The rebirth, and fitting for Pluto, death, rebirth, transformation. Right. So Joe and I were chatting on the phone, and we were just talking about the fact that he's going through a major Pluto transit to his sun. And from that, I said, you know what? let's make this the Pluto show. And then Joe said, yeah, you know what? Let's talk about Pluto and the United States birth chart, the Pluto return. And I said, listen, that's all you babes, because that's not my jam. I'll talk about Pluto in your birth chart, Pluto transits, all that. So together, Joe and I are going to try to give you a comprehensive overview of Pluto in the horoscope. So depending on your level of astrology, it really doesn't matter. You should be able to get something out of today's show. And I will tell you that Pluto is the heavy hitter in your birth chart, okay? Because the energy of Pluto is dark. It is not airy fairy, light and sweet. Pluto goes right to the depths. Pluto goes for the jugular. And so if you want to go for the jugular in your birth chart and in terms of where you can really grow into your soul, look at your Pluto placement by house and look at your Pluto placement by aspect that it makes to other planets in your chart. So Pluto by sign is a generational thing. It talks more about the collective energy that you have for transforming a certain area of life. But of course, it will affect you very personally in the house placement and with the aspects in your chart. So Pluto it's the planet that in your birth chart is going to tell you where you will personally face the most intense, excruciating powers of both creation and destruction. Okay, there's an old song, Joe, and I'm forgetting who sings it. It's called "Lightning Crashes." Do you have who sings the song?
I think that's live. I think that's the name of the band.
Live, or it's not? Okay, it
I
might.
think so.
I don't
From
know.
the 90s, right? You're talking about?
It's definitely from the 90s. Lightning Crashes. I don't remember who sings it.
Yeah, it's live. It's live. Yes,
okay,
that's right.
so the lyrics of that song literally just came to my brain because I was in the car with my daughter one day and the song came on. I was like, Anna Maria, you have to listen to the lyrics in the song. It is just so profound because it is about the parallel of life and death at the same time, right? At least that's my understanding of it.
No, definitely. It's such a deep song. It really is.
And I think really that's what Pluto is about. It is about life and death and attachment and letting go of attachments and finding our own empowerment through the very, very significant understanding of this parallel universe of life and death. What lives will die. What you create can be, you could destroy, but ironically, energy can neither be created nor destroyed. So, I mean, that's a whole philosophical conversation. But Pluto is really where you're going to face the powers of intense creation and destruction in your life. And so Joe lives in Manhattan, and I guess an ambulance is passing right now.
Yeah, that's going to happen a few times. Sorry to everyone listening.
Somebody might be dying.
We're having a Pluto moment.
We're having a Pluto moment, or maybe someone's giving birth in an ambulance. Who knows?
Who's to say when you're talking about Pluto, right?
Yeah, seriously. So now Pluto can be the energy of Pluto in your chart might be feared because it is very powerful. This is where your power is, okay, in your chart. But a lot of us aren't very comfortable with this power, or we may not know how to use it correctly. So we may project it onto other people and then attract Plutonian lessons into our life through those other people. But really, there is a great deal of lesson connected to personal empowerment with Pluto in your birth chart, and definitely Pluto transits that you're going to go through. Okay. Now, Pluto in your chart will also show where you have the most amazing regenerative powers. It is where you will keep going no matter what. And the power, like you've got the power, it is in your Pluto placement. So even if it's not easy and if it's dark. So Joe, what are your thoughts about Pluto in the birth chart in general?
So I think you summed it up pretty well, like you said, everything. But I think for me, and I think I understand Pluto better than maybe all the outer planets because I come from, and you know this because we are in the same family, a family of like all Scorpios. And even if someone isn't a Scorpio, they have like a Scorpio rising. Or, like I'm surrounded by this Plutonian energy.
Oh, yeah, eighth house. Yeah, and I'll talk about what is a Plutonian person in a minute, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah. And I think I may be a little Plutonian myself just because like the ruler, I have like two difficult aspects in my charts, and one of them is Pluto opposite Mercury, which is the ruler of my chart. So it's like I totally get the Pluto energy. Like I fear it because I've never experienced Pluto transit until now, which we'll talk about in a minute. But I do find that I think a lot of people fear it so much because Pluto really at its core is, like you said, life and death. And I feel like most people throughout their entire life do anything but come face to face with their own demise or mortality, or you know what I mean? Like,
yes,
like people go their entire lives doing anything they can to not think about that one day they won't be here anymore. And like, if you're that person, which is most people, Pluto is going to scare the fuck out of you because you don't know what to do with that kind of depth. Like, what's more important than your own mortality and who you truly are? Because when you say it's where you're powerful, it's where your power is. I don't think people realize that your power only can come from the deepest part of yourself. Like, it doesn't mean like your money in your bank account and you're a billionaire, so you're powerful. Although Pluto aspects can be the billionaire aspects. I get that.
Rules, sex, and money. So yeah.
Right. So it is a thing, but it's really more about like Pluto strips you down to like that ittiest bittiest tiny piece of your like soul that you don't want anyone to ever see, that you don't even know exists. Like, that's where your power is. And I think that's why it scares people so much, because you have to go so much deeper with Pluto than you ever thought you possibly could. And it makes people like ruthless sometimes. Sometimes it makes people do things that they would never expect to do. I mean, Pluto can symbolize affairs sometimes in people's charts. Like, it really makes people do things that they would just never do. And I think it's because it's not even that it challenges us. There's no choice with Pluto. Like, you have to get down to that level, or you're like, there's no other option. Like, Pluto is really a one-way street in my like experience with Plutonian people.
I love what you're saying right now, because Pluto is the place to go for shadow work. If you
have to.
When I talk to my beginner students about Pluto and about the 8th house in the birth chart, I always read this little poem called "In the Desert" by Stephen Crane. And I don't know if I ever read it on the show before, but the reason why I read this poem is because it encapsulates, in my opinion, what the Plutonian nature is all about. And it is about sitting with your ugly, sitting with your darkness, and recognizing that there is a dark side to all of us, and there is something that can come out of that darkness that is really beautiful when you acknowledge that it is part of you, that it definitely is it is something to be transcended. And this is why Plutonian people are the best healers, because they are so familiar with the darkness, with the ugly, with the trauma. I mean, really, really, really incredible, traumatic things happen to Plutonian people. And what is a Plutonian person? Just so you know, looking for it in your own birth chart, it is a person. If you look at your birth chart, if you have Pluto on an angle, any angle in your chart, you are a Plutonian. If you have a preponderance of Scorpio placements or 8th house placements, you are a Plutonian person. If you have Pluto in your birth chart in close aspect to the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, even Mars, it makes you more Plutonian. And so it is important to consider this, because if you are a Plutonian person, you have a special karmic consideration to have both a blessing and a curse of sitting in the ugly, sitting with the trauma, and then being able to heal, to really heal yourself and others from it. So if I may, I want to read this poem. It's literally 10 lines. It's so fast. But if you guys listen to this poem, you will understand Pluto, the essence of Pluto in your chart, and the 8th house. Okay, so I'm going to go for it, Joe. It's called In the Desert by Stephen Crane. In the desert, I saw a creature, naked, bestial, who, squatting upon the ground, held his heart in his hands and ate of it. I said, "Is it good, friend?" "It is bitter, bitter," he answered. "But I like it, because it is bitter, and because it is my heart." So this, I think, is Pluto's energy.
Oh, definitely. Very Pluto.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, wow. So, okay. Any other thoughts that you have on natal Pluto before we move on to transiting Pluto and what that's all about?
I think we covered natal Pluto, to be honest. I mean, also, too, I should say, just really quickly, like, we're making it like Pluto is this thing that needs to be respected no matter what. But Pluto can have its, like, fun side, too. Like, it's not all...
Oh,
it's
sexy.
always very serious, right? But it's very sexy. So, like, you know, even though it's serious and it's so dark, like, that can be fun, too. But again, I'm a little bit more of a Plutonian person, so maybe for me, I'm like... I love that, but it would like whips and chains would scare other people. But for me, I'm like, oh, okay, you know, like, all right.
Oh no, I love that dark side too. I mean, the tightest aspect in my chart is a Venus-Pluto opposition and Pluto squaring Mars and Saturn, so, 8th house moon, and you know Neptune conjunction.
We like that sort of thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And
so there is stuff to be enjoyed with Pluto. It's not all, you know, there is some
and it's
enjoyment.
Funny. People who are Plutonian live life in extremes. It is always all or nothing with us, with
That's
Plutonian,
true.
with the Plutonian energy, you know. And I talk about this in terms of my love life because of the tight aspects of Pluto to Venus. Pure and simple, whether it's healthy or not. If I am not obsessed, if I am not insanely just, you know, hypnotized, captivated by a man, I'm not in love. It's not love. Not worth it. Not worth my time. And if I'm not going to be in excruciating pain where I want to die over this, it's not love, because that's Pluto. It's like literally, you know, Pluto Venus. Love is pain, but you know what?
I totally get that.
I will always go for it every damn time, because that is life. That is the elixir of life when you're the Plutonian. Anyway, so. You get it because you're a Plutonian person. And, you know, Pluto transits in the birth chart. You have to talk about them in two different ways, because whenever you look at transits, guys, it's important to always go back to the natal and to consider, well, do I have an aspect between Pluto and a personal planet that is now being triggered by transit? If you do, okay, so let's say you have a Venus-Pluto opposition like I do. And then let's say in the sky, Pluto is coming to transit your natal Venus. And maybe it's a square, or maybe it's a trine. Okay, it depends on the aspect. But if it's a square and you have a natal Pluto-Venus opposition, then that transit of Pluto to your Venus is going to wake up the natal potential in that birth chart aspect, for better or for worse. So if it is a hard aspect, the shadow energy is going to be activated. And sure enough, when I had transiting Pluto squaring my natal Venus, it activated the Venus-Pluto opposition in my very infamous divorce. That was, you know, it was like a life and death situation.
That was during your divorce?
Oh, hell yeah, babes. That's why my divorce cost me $150,000.
I was going to say, that makes perfect sense, because that was definitely Plutonian, that situation.
The darker side. And yet, in contrast, when transiting Pluto in the sky was trine my natal Venus, the most easy aspect, Maria up and married a millionaire. Okay?
Right.
All right,
Can
that's
I get
when
that one?
Listen, you know, no, you have to have it natally. The reason why you have to have this stuff in the natal, I'm going back to the natal because it wakes up your karma. It wakes up the Pluto regenerative energy of that parallel of life, death, and confronting your own darkness and confronting your own power that you're meant to deal with in this lifetime. So if you have a natal aspect and it's being triggered by that transit, understand that it is going to be a life-altering, very significant soul growth opportunity for you, even if it is painful. And Pluto, those hard transits to Pluto, there's going to be loss. There's going to be death, symbolic, literal, excruciating pain. Whatever it is that you want to hold on to the most is what will be ripped away from you, because the lesson of Pluto is non-attachment, that your power is truly in non-attachment, not trying to control the outcome, not trying to control another person. And that's a hard lesson for us humans to learn. Okay.
Right.
So if you don't have a natal aspect, but you're just having a random Pluto transit, which is what Joe's experiencing
right now I'm going through it.
He's going to tell us about it. Then it's not that it's less important. It's just that in general, you're going to have a much more temporary situation that may not infiltrate you on a soul level as deeply as if you had that natally. It still can be difficult. It still can be empowering. It's still going to be a Pluto transit. Okay. You're going to go through the Pluto stuff. But if it's not waking up something in the natal, then I think it is more temporary for you. It's like a once in a lifetime thing. Whereas that once in a lifetime thing for you, Joe, is then going to teach you something for the rest of your life that you'll move forward with. But if you've got that natal, that transit is going to wake up something and change the way that you deal with that aspect in your life, in your natal chart, forever. Okay. So I hope I made that clear. I know I can babble, but Joe, tell us
No,
about
you didn't.
your transit. And Pluto transits, by the way, they can last a couple of years. Okay. Pluto moves really, really slow. So an exact Pluto transit can have anywhere from 3 to 5 mathematical hits. So this can absolutely be a 2-year ordeal or a 2-year transformative bliss experience. Okay. So Joe, what's up with you and your Pluto?
So I definitely have the 2-year one because I have 5 hits. We're doing this podcast sort of a little prematurely because my first exact hit isn't until the 22nd of March this month.
You're within orb. You're feeling it.
I definitely feel it. So far, dare I say this out loud, it hasn't been so bad. Let me start with the negative stuff first. So I just found out that possibly...
What is the transit? Did you say the transit?
So it's Pluto in Capricorn in my 8th house. So it's 8th house. He's transiting my 8th house right now. Is squaring my 11th house sun in Aries. Okay. And then, Venus is 29 degrees Aries right next to my sun. So I'm kind of going to go through 2 of them. Yeah.
Back to back. Yeah.
Right.
But you do not have a natal Pluto sun aspect, and you do not have a natal Pluto Venus aspect. Okay.
No. So I should be all right.
Talk to us. What's going on now?
So let me give you the bad first. So on my mom's side of the family, not on the side that we share, I just found out that somebody might, we don't know yet, but might have cancer.
Oh, is it a male or if?
Yeah, it's a man because it's one of my own. Yeah. So, but it was strange because the week before I got that news, I was expecting to hear something about 1 or 2 of these people in my family because I had a dream that one of them died, and then I called my mother to tell her, and I was like, I think something might be going on, and my father had the same dream the night before about someone else in the same family. Ooh. Like that, and he woke up like the day, it was like a day or 2 before, and my dad could put me out of business. He's so psychic, it's not even funny. And he's like so scary. And he said, I think so-and-so might die. And my mother was like, oh, shut up. What are you talking about? And then I called her. So I'm anticipating that could be possible, or, so I have that in the back of my mind. And this is like one of my favorite people in my mom's family. So I'm like, very upset about it. But
I'm sorry.
We don't even know yet. I'm getting ahead of myself, but, I'm kind of getting...
You're expecting it because of what's going on.
Because of the transit. And I've been complaining to my mother that I thought my father was going to die this transit because and honestly, I feel like I'm always killing this man because my dad's not well. My father's been sick since I'm younger. He had a brain tumor and, all these health complications. But the interesting thing is the last time there was an outer planet at this exact degree was Neptune back in the 90s when Neptune was in Capricorn. And that's when my dad got sick and both my grandparents died. But now that Pluto is, because my grandparents passed away 8 months apart, and then 6 months after my grandfather passed, because he was the second one to pass, my dad almost died.
And Neptune was squaring your son at that time.
Neptune was right, squaring my son. Exactly. Okay. So now we're having Pluto hit the same spot. So I'm expecting something with my dad. But I will say, this person who's sick is like one of the only other father figures I've ever had other than my father. So
I mean, look, it's going to be family. The sun rules your fourth house. The sun is in your 11th house. So it's either a friend or a family member who's going to croak during this Pluto transit.
Right. So I not that I'm okay with it, but I'm like, you know what? At least I know astrology, and I know, just brace yourself. So that's the one negative thing that I see coming up. Now the positives, one of them, this is going to be such an Aries thing for me to say, so please forgive me. everyone listening, please forgive me. I am not as shallow as I'm about to sound, or maybe I am. So, but let me go back because I'm gonna bare my soul because this is a Pluto show, right?
Yes.
So when I was younger, I grew up on Long Island in a suburb. I was obviously very much a little gay boy. So I was bullied pretty badly for not I wasn't beat up or anything, but I had really maybe 2 friends for a good 3 or 4 years in middle school. I know what it's like to be on the outside, and that always stuck with me. Even when I was in therapy years ago, because I think everyone needs therapy, honestly, even if you're healthy, you're probably not. You got to go. But anyway, I used to talk about it a lot because I noticed a lot of my behaviors and a lot of things came from that time when I felt very unworthy and just unattractive. And it's a time when you're going through puberty. So I was already awkward. I wasn't attracted to girls the way I was supposed to be. So I kind of felt already in a weird, you know what I mean? It was just a very weird time. And it's sort of when you're coming into your own, when you're realizing I can be attractive, and sexuality becomes a thing. So that's always been a little weird for me. If somebody thinks I'm attractive, I'm wait, do they really? I always find a flaw or a fault with it. So,
well, even though you're hot, pain in the ass.
Well, this is what I'm about to say. It's very Aries, full of myself. I have been going to the gym a lot during the pandemic because there's literally nothing else to fucking do, right? So I live 4 blocks away on the west side. I walk right to my gym. I go work out 3-4 days a week. I'm eating right. There's not a lot of temptation to ruin my diet plan and everything. So I have recently been looking not so bad. My body's looking nice. I lost a little weight in the face. So
you're ripped right now. I saw a picture.
If anyone would like to check out my Instagram, I did post a shirtless picture. Shameless thirst trap self-promotion here. But anyway, my point being is that
transforming the identity and body and self.
Right. So I'm sort of it's deeper than just I feel like I look good, but it's to the point where I'm noticing the different reactions that I'm getting from men now. And I'm very much having to be conscious to not abuse that, which is also a Pluto thing, is the abuse of power. Because now I'm oh yeah, you fucks, you're interested, well fuck you. I'm getting very listen, my Venus is in Aries at the 29th degree. I'm having this, I like to play with people. It's horrible, but I sort of revel in that, oh, you're attracted to me, well, now I'm going to make you work for it. It's I can't help it. It's who I am.
No, but you want to be chased. I have Venus in Aries too. It's because Venus in Aries wants to be chased.
Right. And it's this, it's sort of this sore spot with my Pluto.
Yeah.
So I'm coming into this newfound slutty power, I guess, which I'm all for because I'm do you. I am so not. I'm a sex positive, do whatever you want. You want to be a prostitute, girl, go for it. Wear a condom. I'm so not against it. But my point is that this is going on right now during my Pluto transit to my sun, which is my essence and my light. And, I'm attracting all these different people. So that's one thing that I'm not hating about this Pluto transit is I'm feeling very powerful in the dating realm.
I want to go back to your natal for a minute because your natal Pluto is in the 6th house. Your 6th house is your health. Okay.
Right.
And so Pluto also rules your 6th house. And so now transiting Pluto is in your 8th house. So you're transforming your health and your identity, and you're in the best shape of your life. And and what is really interesting is that when I have Pluto in the 6th house like you do natally, And when I had that Pluto square Venus transit and I was going through hell with my divorce,
Mm-hmm.
I was ripped and in the best shape of my life. I mean, geez, if you go to my videos from 2009, 2010, I was a hot piece of ass. My muscles, 104 pounds. Oh man, that's when my videos took flight and bite-sized
Right.
astrology. So it's because it's the sixth, wherever your natal Pluto placement is during a transit, that is going to come alive somehow in the transit. It's going to be the placement of Pluto, the house that Pluto rules in your chart, the house that Pluto's transiting in your chart, and then the natal planet being transited, that house, and then the house it rules. So for you, Joe, this transit is a fourth house matter. The sun rules your fourth. The sixth house matter, Pluto rules and is in your sixth. An eighth house matter, Pluto is transiting your eighth. And an 11th house matter, the sun is in your 11th. So it's those houses where this is really coming to life, and you're explaining it very well so far.
Well, I'm going to bring it even more to life now, because the other thing that's going on concerns very much the 11th house. Mm-hmm. So without saying too much, I have a couple, actually not even, I would say it's like, I don't know, 3 or something now, whatever it is, TV opportunities. And this is not something I'm a stranger to, because I filmed stuff before and it just never happened. And, that's just the nature of the business. If it happens, it happens. It doesn't. It's not going to kill me if I don't get on TV. But the universe has dangled it in front of me enough that I'm like, all right, well, come on. But anyway, I have all these opportunities kind of at the same time. And, Maria, I've never fought with these people or tried to negotiate contracts. Since I last spoke to you, I know I told you about some of this like a month ago, and we were kind of talking about how this was Pluto. I, since then, have literally been back and forth with yet another production company because they want me to sign, and I was like, well, I won't do it unless this, and this happens. I would never have dreamed of being because I always felt, I'm not on TV. I don't have a name. Who the hell am I to negotiate with these people? But here I am in my emails being I won't sign this unless you change the contract to this, and this. And these fucking people are listening to me. People are just left and right are it's terrible to say, but they're obeying or not even obeying, but I'm realizing that I have more power than I thought when it comes to this 11th house, TV, media. The 11th house is all about that stuff. It's like the airwaves, right? So, and reaching a bigger audience. So I actually just, it's not official yet, but I just negotiated something, and I may end up being not like the host of any show or anything, but featured on this possible TV show that's supposed to be coming out this year. So I'm hoping.
No, go ahead, because I have to school you after you finish this. Yes, I gotta tell you about your Pluto lesson that you're not seeing. But go ahead.
Right? No, please do. Please no. Tell me now. So that's it. That's what's happening. So I'm writing it out.
All right. So astrology lovers, Joe is a very spiritual, good person. He is also a human like me, you, and everybody else. Okay. So we're all here as souls in physical bodies to go through some experiences that are meant to facilitate our soul growth. So now I say this with total love, but we've already talked about this a little bit. But hearing you bring to life what's been happening and hearing how you're responding to it tells me that the next 4 hits of your Pluto transit are going to bring you to your knees, little boy.
Oh, great.
Listen to me carefully, because this is how you're going to drive this Pluto transit. What you are the most afraid of losing is what you're gonna lose. Pluto squaring your sun. Now, here's what I'm getting the sense of right now. Pluto has fed your ego healthily enough right now to where, all right, I'm ripped. All right, I'm manipulating these guys, and I'm the boss, and I'm in charge, and I'm manipulating these TV people.
Well, I don't know
if
I feel in charge. I just feel like I have a voice.
You feel like you have a voice, and that's important for you because your natal Pluto Mercury opposition is that there's a lesson there, but the correct use of your personal power is the epitome of this transit for you. Pluto square the sun. Pluto sun transits in general, okay? You're going to be confronted with your personal power and the correct use of it. And if you are using it in any shadow way, my friend,
Right.
for manipulation, for control, you're gonna go through it. You're gonna go
Right.
through it. So, like with the men, be careful because you
Right.
might meet
There, I
them
definitely have to be
and
careful.
think you're gonna think, oh yeah, I'm in charge, I'm in control, I've got this. And 2 months later, you're so obsessively drunk in love with somebody that you're under their thumb and doing crazy things. Just
Right. Right.
just be
Right.
aware. Please take a step outside of it because this can be a dangerous transit if you are not high vibration. You got to do high vibration Pluto during
Right.
this transit, which is your Pluto 6th house. Heal, definitely healing work. Definitely
Right.
you're doing with your physical body is actually one of the best things you could be doing right now because
Oh, good.
that's the positive control of it. But
Yeah.
I am a little concerned because you're gonna heighten your power professionally and collectively. 11th house, like great big dream is going to come true for you, and you're going to have all this social power.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like you're going to be this big influencer. But that you just have to be you're playing with fire if you're not
Right.
doing
Of
it
course.
during the Pluto transit. So that's what I wanted to say, because then if you were totally shadow, you might get caught up in, everybody is dying, or you're in a
Right.
scandal and there's illegal stuff happening, criminal stuff happening all around you. Like the new boyfriend might end up
Be
going
a
to
criminal.
prison for murder or something.
Right.
I know it's dramatic, but I'm just trying to
No,
illustrate.
I know that it could be though with Pluto.
Yeah.
So far, I mean, because we did have this conversation, so you are in the back of my mind every time I sort of tried to negotiate. I was like, all right, am I taking advantage? Like, am I, But I think for me, it's just like I know it's a silly thing to try to negotiate a contract because like everyone does that, but for me, I've never done it before. So I was like, oh my god, like I'm this big like powerhouse now. Here I am negotiating contracts. Meanwhile, people do it all the time, but for me, it's a huge deal because I've never, done it before. But I do see what you're saying because I feel like with all like the Aries and being a very Aries person, I could easily get carried away with that.
Yeah, and in a lot of ways, this transit, by the end of it, is like the death of your ego self as you know it, Sun and Aries. There will be the death of that. That's the
Right.
big symbol that from all these experiences that you're about to have, and then the rebirth of it, and the gift that you'll get from it comes after the Pluto transit is complete.
Right.
So through the loss and the pain and the suffering comes the resurrection, comes the rebirth, but that's not going to be for a few years.
Right. For
And
a while.
so on that note, mundane astrology is Joe's thing, but it's not mine. But I know a lot of you are interested in what goes on in the world because we live in the world.
Right.
I live on planet Maria in my own bubble, apparently. Now, I am aware that the United States birth chart, we are having what is known as a Pluto return, which is very rare. Only happens every 200 and something years that Pluto
it's
is
like
going to make a
260
conjunction.
something, I think.
Yeah, depending on what
Yeah.
sign Pluto is in the orbit.
Right.
So, Joe, I'm going to hand this portion of the show right over to you because you're the expert here.
All right.
What's this Pluto return birth chart crap about?
So I have this year actually been studying a lot more mundane astrology because of the shit show of a year we had last year, since the pandemic. So I kind of know more about it now than ever. Mm-hmm. So we're sort of in the beginning stages, like the approach to our Saturn return, but we don't get the first direct hit until Pluto, sorry. Yeah. What did I say, Saturn? No, yeah. Pluto. No, I'm so over Saturn. We did that already. So we get the first exact hit February 20th of 2022 of our Pluto return as a country. So when that happens, I did a little research last night, just a little history, because I'm not a history buff, but I wanted to give you guys an example, and you, Maria, too.
Yeah.
Because
school me.
Most people don't have Pluto returns because it takes so long. So only like countries will have it, or empires, or like, if a business is around for hundreds of years. And the most notable one is the Roman Empire, which actually had 2 Pluto returns. So I'm just going to read you guys really quickly what I learned last night. So the Roman Empire's first Pluto return took place in the years 217 AD to 220 AD. And that was a significant time of like political turmoil, and people were sort of revolting and stuff. And then they actually had like a revolving door of emperors at the time. So like presidents like here, basically. that they all ended up being executed. Like it was like a lot of Pluto death,
Ooh.
scandal. So that's not to say that like we're gonna kill Biden. You know what I mean? That's not what that means. It could. Their Pluto. Their Pluto. I think was in Cancer. It's actually the exact opposite of our Pluto in the United States, which I think is interesting by degree. It was like 26 degrees Cancer or something like that, or whatever our degree is. But anyway, so that was the first one. So we're already seeing the political turmoil, all the crazy shit that's been going on. We're already seeing it. It's not going to really go away for the next couple of years. Then the second Pluto return for Rome, which happened in 463 AD to 465, and Rome actually didn't fall until 476 AD, so it was about 10 years before this that the Pluto return happened. But that time period was when a particular emperor, whose name was Libius Severus, was the emperor of the Western Roman Empire at that time, and he was like super ineffective, and he was actually the puppet and being manipulated by some other guy who wasn't able to be an emperor because he was German. So it's very Pluto to be manipulated, like you said, and to be the puppet for someone else. So that was the beginning of the end around that time for the Roman Empire, because they had a weak leader who was being manipulated behind the scenes by someone else. And because of that whole power struggle and all the BS, Rome ended up paving a path, basically, which made it fall 10, 11 years later. So we're already seeing how Pluto has that energy where, like you said, if it's a natal aspect, it's sort of a far-reaching thing. Like the transit might be over, but it still triggers something. Pluto stuff doesn't just, it's not like a rough time you go through and then it's over. It's always that transformative forever thing. So we see that here with the Roman Empire, right? So we're going through the same thing right now. So basically what we're looking at is the United States basically going through much needed change, right? It's not going to be easy. It's going to be very difficult. Well, listen, people could die. Absolutely. I mean, we're seeing it already. 500,000 Americans already with coronavirus. Like it's as much as we looked at last year, astrologers, we looked at it as that sort of clump of planets that were in Capricorn. Was it Jupiter, Saturn, and
the Saturn
Pluto?
Pluto conjunction? Right. Yep. Jupiter.
So we had Pluto there, and he's going to, back to the Pluto return. So we're really just a continuation of the deeper meaning behind this whole pandemic.
As Pluto, it relates to the United States specifically, right? Because you're talking about the United States Pluto return. So, which chart do you use for the United States?
I use the one where the rising is Cancer, I believe.
Oh, you use the Cancer rising.
I think that's the one I was looking at. I kind of forget which.
I'm looking at the Sibley chart. The Sag rising chart?
Oh, no, that might be the one that I'm looking at. I'm lying to you. It's Sag rising. That's the one I look at. It's Sibley, right? I thought it was.
It's the Sibley
there's
chart.
2 or 3 of them. I always get confused, but it's it's Sag rising, because I always think how America's very like free on the surface, and we have but then like when you get down to it, we're kind of traditional Cancer sun. But the dates to really look out for next year with this Pluto return is February of next year. Then we have our next hit in July. Then we have our next hit in December. And then October 2023 is a big month too. And then we actually will still feel the effects until January of 2024. So honestly, people, it doesn't mean we're going to be in lockdown and wearing masks until then. But the political climate that we're having, and I think a lot of this too. Pluto. It's like you said, Pluto holds on to things that it doesn't. It makes you lose things that you don't want to lose, right?
Right. Like you're most afraid of losing, because
Pluto makes you go so deep. Like it's trauma, it's childhood trauma a lot of the time. It's things that have happened to you that you've buried and you pushed away. It's all that shadow work. I think in this country, how we're really going over our history now with a fine-tooth comb and saying, at this time we glorified this person, but they did have these beliefs about slavery, and this organization started out as this. You know what I'm saying? Like there's so much coming up that we're like, well, they never taught us that in school, and there's so much coming up about how whitewashed everything was and how things haven't been so fair, and we've all of these like double standards and all the BS that we've kind of just taken as the status quo that so many people are white knuckling and really trying to hold on to. That's all going. Whether people believe it's real or not doesn't matter, because the astrology is reflecting that we are heading in a much different direction than we have been for the last let's say 200 and something years since Pluto was originally in that spot.
Yeah.
And I think it's very telling too that Pluto, once this is over, is about to head into Aquarius, like fully solidifying the whole age of Aquarius feeling of being progressive and everyone, having more than they did before, and helping people out, that whole Aquarian humanitarian energy. So I think that's just at the other end of our Pluto return, but where honestly America is not going to be what it is today in the next 2-3 years. I haven't felt that for a while psychically, and astrologically it's not there either.
And that makes perfect sense, because Pluto is going to destroy what it touches. And in Capricorn, it is the structures. So the structures of our United States government. Pluto in the Sibley chart, I think, is in the second house.
I was going to say second house, right?
And so
we
this
can
is
expect
finances.
money to change, the economy. Like this is going to really hit us, honestly, where it hurts. Because not only is it going super deep, but I mean, America is literally, the United States is a country that we're a little bit obsessed with money. I mean, compared to most of the countries in the world. I just watched this documentary about, oh my God, not Annie Leibovitz. What the hell is her name? It's called Pretend It's a City. I can't think of her name right now.
Okay.
Leibovitz?
Okay.
Fran Leibovitz? Yeah.
Okay.
So she's like this famous New Yorker. And she said that we've become so obsessed with money in this country that when you go to an art auction, they reveal the art and no one claps. And then when somebody spends $300 million on it and they reveal how much it's sold for, then that's when they clap for the price.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my God, that is such a good metaphor, whatever you want to call it, for our culture. We don't applaud the beautiful art that somebody poured their soul into. We applaud that somebody spent $300 million on it. And I feel like how fitting that our Pluto return in this country is in the second house of money, when this is what we value.
Values.
Right, and values, exactly. So I really think we're going to be confronted with our, at what cost, is how much we're going to sell people for our money and for, our, all this stuff. So we'll see. It'll be interesting.
I'm glad you provided the timing of these hits of the actual Pluto return in the United States chart. And I would say, guys, just, pay attention to the very end of 2021 into February of 2022, when there is that first hit, because there are a lot of other things in that chart that are being triggered at the same time. So December 4th of 2021, we are going to have an eclipse that is exactly on the ascendant of this particular United States birth chart at 12 degrees 22 minutes of Sagittarius.
So that's a big one.
That's happening December 4th of 2021, right before this first exact mathematical hit in February of 2022. We're also having this Neptune opposition in the chart at the same time. And, this is not my jam, mundane astrology, but I will say that it certainly is pointing to a very, very major transition for our country that we already know is happening.
We're seeing it. But
not to be feared. Don't fear it. Pluto, do high vibration Pluto, people, and collectively we will get through it. Okay?
We will. It's just going to be difficult,
Yes. So anyway, on that note, wow, we have actually come to the end of our first episode. Coming back to the podcast, I'm like, wow, can't even believe it. So it's been amazing to have you back on. I love it.
So good to be here. Thank you.
And thank you guys for listening and tuning in. And just so you know, I've got, some really great guests lined up, astrologers, metaphysicians, as always. In 2 weeks, we're going to have an astrologer that I adore, another gay boy, Lars Mellis. I guess that March is the gay boy astrology.
Yes,
it's
our month.
But I love Lars. He is just, very Plutonian, but he is going to talk to us about how to take the scare out of the square aspect in your birth chart. So that's going to be a really great, enlightening discussion. I'm looking forward to chatting with him. And next month in April, I have an amazing past life regressionist coming on the show. There's so much to look forward to. As always, thank you for tuning in, and you can find out more about me and my work on insightfulastrology.com. Until next time, keep using the power of astrology to grow into your soul. Thanks, and bye-bye.
You've been listening to Insightful Astrology with your host, Maria DeSimone. Visit Maria on her website at www.insightfulastrology.com to schedule your personal consultation and learn how to use the power of astrology to grow into your soul.